Hey guys, Solomon here. I hope you are having a great day. As many of you may be aware of, when we start a game of chess as white, we have 20 different options. We're going to be covering all 20 of those openings in this video. Starting out with our first move, we have a3 with the Anderssen Opening. And I'm actually going to say that this is one of the most underrated moves that we can play to start a chess game. This may seem like a complete waste of time, but here's how I would think of it. If we're playing as black, right, and we just started out with the pawn on a6, would this be good or bad for us? I would say good, right? It supports b5. A bishop can never go there. A knight can never go there. We can play b5 whenever we want if white doesn't spend their own time preventing it. The same thing goes for white, right? Here we play a move like a3. We're covering b4. We're looking to launch this pawn. And if you prefer playing as black, if you prefer reacting to the opponent, this is a net positive option. Okay, if you see something like e5, I think a3 is very well suited with something like e3 followed by d4 advancing in the center of something like e4. We strike with c4. Again, b4 is covered, right? So we can play a move like knight c3, play b4 quickly, expand on the queen side. You can get positions like this all the time with just starting out with the move of a3. Okay, now our next opening, we have this move of a4 with the Ware Opening. Now, unlike the move of a3, this doesn't support b4. In fact, it makes it weaker because for the rest of this game, we only have one pawn that can ever support that square, right? So if I'm black here, I'm going to play something like e5, maybe knight c6, just try to take control of some of those dark squares, right? And in this case, I just don't think that a4 is very good. Okay, we can play a move like c3 at some point and try to cover b4, but then at that point, we have moved both of our c and a pawns, so b3 is going to be a square that none of our pawns can defend for the rest of the game. Now, this may not seem important now, but if I'm black, I am keeping my eye on this guy's chess. Pawns are the fence line of the game, right? And you got to be aware that moving a pawn at the start of the game can affect you a lot later on. a4 doesn't really help us much at all. I guess you can argue it makes some queenside space, but it really just weakens our dark squares quite a bit. Okay, now going back, right? So we have the move a4. What's the next opening? Well, the Larsen's Opening with b3. I'm actually a big fan of this opening. This is also considered to be the Nimzowitsch-Larsen attack. And this is just a good move because we're looking to Fianchetto our bishop, right? Case closed. As y'all know, I'm a big fan of the hippo, and I've played b3 quite a bit. But even if you don't play the hippo, let's say we see something like e5, we can put pressure on that pawn. If they defend it, play here, d5, pin the knight, and because that knight's pinned, we're threatening this pawn yet again. And if you guys are familiar at all with the Owens defense, we're playing the Owens defense, but with the white pieces and up a tempo. Okay, so b3, very solid option. We also had the move of b4, and in all honesty, if I had to describe this opening, I would say funky. This opening is just straight up weird, okay? And here's the idea, or a couple of ideas, okay, just to introduce it. If you see something like e6, we're just Fianchettoing our bishop. You can take this pawn all you want. We're taking here, and guess what? You're going to lose your rook, right? That rook is not going to make it unless, you play queen f6 or something, and then, well, thanks to the queen, we appreciate it, right? And going back, right, if black plays a move like e5, and we play bishop here, if black looks to defend that pawn with knight c6, guess what? We are chasing that knight around. And if you take this pawn, we're taking off your central pawn. The computer likes black here. But if you like funky openings and you like getting yourself in really in situations where your opponent doesn't have any idea what they're doing in terms of the theory, this is actually a pretty decent option. Okay. b4 with the Polish, with the orangutan. There's a ton of different names. And technically, at least according to a guy that I met at a chess tournament, it is the 9th most popular option for white out of 20 moves. So apparently it's above average if you use that kind of logic. Okay. Going back, what's our next move? Well, as y'all can see, we kind of have a pattern going here, right? We got c3 with the Saragossa Opening. I'm a big fan of this move for you Carl-Con defense and London Opening players as well. Okay, now, a lot of players look at c3 and just go, gosh, that is just a bad move. But at the same time, right, for black, the Carl-Con defense is seen as a very strong option, even at the Grandmaster level. We're doing the same exact thing, but as white. There's literally nothing wrong with this move. There's not. Okay, we're preparing d4. If you see something like e5, we have a Carl-Con defense, but up a tempo, okay? I'm a big fan of switching the perspective and going, okay, can we kind of relate this position to black? And if we can, we're up a tempo because obviously we played white and we started the game off. And okay, if black doesn't play e5 and gives us that Carl-Con type position, let's say they play d5 or something, all right, we play d4, knight f3, bishop f4. If someone comes around, move 6 or 7, they're not going to even know that we started this thing off with the move c3. Okay. So that's one thing to think about. We also got the English Opening, right? I mean, this is a staple chess opening. Huge option for you Sicilian defense players, because if black plays e5, we have a Sicilian defense, but with the white pieces, and we're up a tempo. And in the Sicilian is very sharp, so this is a big deal. I myself played the Sicilian Najdorf for a very long time. If you're not familiar with the Najdorf, you can look it up. I mean, it was a huge opening played by Gary Kasparov. Had a ton of success with it. I played it for about 7 years. But yeah, because of that, since I'm a Najdorf player, I would play the move of d3. If I see something like knight out, okay, I'll play knight f3, just keep developing, a3, cover that b4 square. Remember, again, guys, a3, Anderssen Opening, it's a solid move. It's going to help you later on if you play that. But okay, if black plays d5, we'll take, right? We'll continue with e3. And really the whole idea, right, of playing c4 and getting ready for d5 at some point is that if they do play it, we're trading off a flank pawn for their center pawn. So now we have 2 central pawns on the d and e files compared to their 1 on e5, and this is considered to be a slight advantage for the white side in this case. Okay, so that is an option. What else do we have? Well, we have d3 with the Mieses Opening. Okay, now d3 is, I'm not going to lie, it's a little bit weird, but it's not bad. It's not a mistake. It's not going to ruin your game or anything like that. d3, if you see something like e5, we can transpose into an English Opening, for an example. We could also play knight f3 next, going into kind of a potential King's Indian attack type game. There's a lot of things that we can do with this. If you see a move like d5, we could even play e4. Okay, this is kind of a reversed, we're playing d3 and e4. Almost feels like a reversed defensive rat type variation. If black takes, we take. And if they want to trade queens, that's totally fine. We're actually going to think about tucking our king on c2 in a lot of types of positions like this. At the end of the day, I wouldn't say that d3 is that great. I also wouldn't say it's terrible. I would just say it kind of, it gives black a lot of options. And unlike a3, it's a little bit not clear in its objective, right? We're covering squares, but beyond that, it kind of just seems like we're going to play something like knight f3 next. Okay, at least that's my take on the Mieses Opening. But you can, I'm more than open to hearing your thoughts on the move of d3. Next up, Queen's Pawn Opening. I mean, talk about a top tier chess opening option for white with d4. If you play this, as many of y'all have seen on Netflix, there's the Queen's Gambit show, right? And the Queen's Gambit in chess is this move of c4. I mean, this is just classical opening chess. And d4, what does this move do? Just to start things off, right? There's a ton of things that black can do against it and try against it, right? We got the Benko Gambit, we got the Old Benoni, we got a move like g6, the King's Indian defense. The list goes on and on. But what does this move do? Well, it puts pressure on the dark squares, right, of c5 and e5 on black side of the board. And it also activates our dark squared bishop and gives our queen a little bit of breathing room. Okay, so d4 is a solid option. Next, we have the Krujis Opening with e3. I don't think this is a bad move. This fits my style, right? Of kind of playing weird, funky openings that look a little strange at the beginning, but they kind of turn into a very playable opening setup. When we play e3, we're looking to play d4 in most cases, right? If you're a French defense player, e3 is not a bad option because if you see e5, okay, we play d4. We're on a French defense, but up a tempo. Obviously, black doesn't have d5 on the board yet, but that's fine, right? I mean, if black plays something like e4, there's a lot of things we can think about, even c4, and just starting to pile up the pressure on that pawn. And black's going to have a hard time holding on here, okay, to this pawn on e4, right? d5, I guess he defended it for a second, but we're just going to take that guy, play something like knight c3, attack the queen. e4 is a little bit vulnerable at the end of the day, all right? And another option that you also have of playing e3, let's say, you see something like e5, you could even play c4, right? This is a totally viable option. e3 keeps your options open, right? You have a move like f4 available. You have a move like d4 available, b3, c4. A lot of moves that kind of, come alongside the Krujis Opening well, okay? Next up, we got the move of e4. King's Pawn Opening. This is what I played as a kid for, and really up to most of my life up to this point, right? As y'all know, I kind of changed over into the hippopotamus defense or attack if you're playing as white kind of opening. But e4 is, I mean, yeah, it's just great chess, right? We're attacking 2 squares on black side of the board, and we're activating both our bishop and our queen. That being said, there's a lot of different things that black can do against this, and black is going to prep like crazy with whatever opening you choose against this. And there's a lot of options, right? We have the modern, we have the Alekhines defense, we have the French, E5, right? We have the Perk, Scandinavian, Karl Kahn, Sicilian, Owens, Nimzowitsch with knight c6. A lot of different things you got to study for. But e4 it's hard to miss. It's definitely worth consideration. Okay. Next up, we got f3, and this is just straight up bad. All right. I know you all have probably seen Hikaru Nakamura play this with great success and all that kind of stuff, guys. It's bad. Okay. It's a bad move. It's a bad move. And if you're 3,000 online, then yeah, you can play this and beat anybody, right? Just about anybody. But is this a good move? No, it doesn't do anything good. It weakens our dark square diagonal, which no back rank pieces can defend. And yeah, I mean, it just doesn't, I mean, what's this do, right? It stops our knight. It supports e4, which we could have played. It supports g4, which I'm sorry, guys, but in general, like f3 and g4, they don't mix together well. You know what I mean? It's like trying to make a chocolate chip cookie, and I can't even say that right. Yeah, make a cookie and throwing in like orange juice instead of milk. I don't even know. I don't even know what I'm saying. Basically, these two moves are not very good, okay, because we just lost the game with queen h4. Checkmate, game over, okay? Going back, right, instead of f3, f4 on the other hand, right, the bird's opening, this is actually a pretty strong opening for white. I'm a big fan of the birds, very flexible. If you see something like d5, right, we're actually kind of playing a Dutch defense, but up a tempo. We have a lot of different options here. We can play knight f3, we can play e3, right? And you know, some players might get tripped up about e5 with the Fromm's gambit, but it turns out that white's simply better here. Okay, there's nothing to worry about. You know, we're more than fine against this. Okay, so the bird's opening, right, is a very strong option. F3 on the other hand, not so good. Okay, it really limits our development, and it doesn't really fight for central control much at all. Okay. What else do we have? Well, G3. This is the King's Fianchetto Opening, Hungarian Opening, right? Different names, but, you know, this is what I've been playing, getting into the hippo. But, yeah, I mean, solid option, right? Just like the Larsens, we're just looking to Fianchetto a bishop, and from that point, there's a ton of different things that you can do. It leaves your options open. You know, we haven't moved either of our central pawns yet, or even our flank pawns to this point, so there's a lot of different things that we can do based on what black plays, okay? Next up, we have the Grob Opening. And in all honesty, I'd probably just say that this opening is terrible. And guess what? I'm going to say that this move is terrible. But it somehow, you know, again, just like, you know, Hikaru playing f3, this can lead to an interesting game. Okay, if y'all have ever seen the Coffee Chess YouTube channel, you might know of the name of FM Mark the Duck. And yeah, he plays this move G4 with the Grob. I've played it against him as black, and he knows how to play this pretty well. He knows how to make a game out of this move. So G4, very interesting. Okay. Next up, we got this move of H3 with the Clemenz Opening. H3, I wouldn't say, in my opinion, I don't think it's as good as A3, at least for my style of play. I think that this makes the king side a little bit vulnerable, but at the end of the day, I still think that it serves a good purpose, right? Even though we might not want to play G4 at the start of the game and weaken our king side, it does cover G4, which is cool, right? We'll take that. The move of H4, on the other hand, with the Kadas Opening, I mean, this is just, yeah, again, G4 is weak, right? G4 is weak. If I'm black, I'm playing D5, knight F6. A bishop on G4 at some point just looks very nice for black. What does H4 do? I guess you could say it takes some space, but who cares? It's just making weaknesses at the end of the day. Okay. Next up, we got 18 moves in, 4 more to go. 16 moves and 4 more to go. Right. I got to work on my math apparently. We got our knight moves. Right. Let's start out with our B knight, knight A3. This is considered the sodium attack. Okay. That said, I'm not going to sit here and say it's a blunder, but it's not good, right? As y'all have probably heard, the knight on the rim is dim, and this knight attacks squares like C4 and B5. Who cares, right? If I'm black and I see this move, I'm not going to be too afraid of this, okay? This move of knight c3, on the other hand, with the Geet Opening, this is very interesting. This is what I consider to be a transpositional type of opening move, meaning that, okay, if we see e5, guess what? We can play e4, and we are in a Vienna game. And, you know, if we play e4, let's say we're an e4 player, you know, there's a high chance our opponent might not play e5, right? But with this move order, they play e5, we play e4, they're stuck in a Vienna game type position, and they might not know the theory, right? In a similar sense, let's say they play d5. Okay, we play e4. We're in a lizard attack here with the move of knight c3. Do they play the Scandinavian defense? Probably not, right? And by the same token, if they play the move of c5, right, just using that flank pawn, putting pressure in the center, we play e4. We are now in a Grand Prix. Okay, so, you know, this move of knight c3, just by changing up the move order, you might force your opponent into a whole different realm of opening theory that your opponent has never even looked at. Okay, so knight c3 is very interesting. Okay, it really is. And I just covered, 3 moves that take complete control of the center. Okay, and against all of those, we get very solid positions following the move of e4. Okay, so I'm a fan of knight c3. I am, not gonna lie. Okay, we also have this move of knight h3 with the Amar Opening. Again, yeah, what are we doing, right? What are we doing? What is this, right? What is this doing? Okay. Yeah, it's attacking both those squares, and black can kind of just play a move like e5 if they want to, and guess what? The knight can't even move there. Right? Black could also play d5 the first move or later, and that knight's a target. Not good. Right? Not a good move. Okay, if you're Hikaru, you can redeem it, but it's not a good move in and of itself. And finally, we got knight f3 with the Reti Opening. This can lead to a lot of different things. Like if d5, we can play here the move of c4 with the Reti Gambit. We can go into a King's Indian attack type game. We can transpose into a d4 type system. There's a lot of different things that we can do with this knight f3 move. But it's just a solid option for white, right? Develop that knight, throw it out there. We still have options, right, going forward, like e4, d4, or c4, depending on what our opponent plays and what we'd like to go into. So I hope you enjoyed this video covering the 20 moves that white has to start off the game and just my brief thoughts on them. Some of them are funky, some of them are good, some of them are underrated, and some of them are just straight up bad. All right, straight up bad. That's all I got to say. Thanks for watching today's video. If you enjoyed it, make sure to subscribe to this channel as well as hit that notification bell so that you don't miss out on anything coming your way. On top of that, I wanted to give a big shout out to my Patreon supporters for the month of October in 2023. We have some recently added benefits, and I would love for y'all to join the team. I'll see y'all in the next one.